Bill O'Brien's latest recruiting class has Boston College taking the next step to become even more competitive in the ACC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for news, analysis, scoops, and all the details on your Boston College Eagles, you have found the right place. We are a daily Boston College podcast. We do this 5 days a week. We're the only ones that do this. And if you want your Eagles news, you're in the right spot. On today's show, 3 names in the class of 2027 I want you to know about for Boston College football. The MVR, who's the most valuable recruit on BC on the offensive and defensive side, and what was the best positional haul for Bill O'Brien in this group? I'm going to give you all of that on today's show. So let's kick it off. Class of 2026, as I've said before, is pretty much, I would say, 85 to 90% done. You're going to have potentially some flips, maybe a senior kid that pops later on in the fall. But for the most part, the guys that you have 27 recruits right now, most of them will be your class. Again, also, you may lose 1 or 2 of them. But I think for the most part, your class is what you got, right? So let's talk about this group. Let's look at what Bill O'Brien has done right, maybe some concerns, and what we've liked, and really the things that he has that has Boston College heading in the right direction in terms of the development of his program. So the class of 2026. Which position do I think BC did the best job at recruiting? And this is going to be talking about the guys they landed, maybe even a little bit about guys that they missed on that would have been better, and some thoughts about some of the players that maybe they haven't gotten. And that's going to be the offensive line. I really do think BC put together a very solid offensive line. You have 5 recruits. 3 of them had been committed forever. That's Mark Antunes, Brady Beckenhuis, and Dean Ruxnitis, all local kids that committed before the start of the 2024 season. And they have stayed committed, even with Bill Belichick pushing and trying to offer to get them to come to UNC. This group, Mark Antunes, I think he was a Jeff Hafley recruit to start off with, is one that I'm really glad never became a national recruit in terms of just big offers. He got some offers recently-ish. I'm sure Belichick offered. I know Syracuse offered him. But because he stayed so tight with BC, it doesn't feel like he ever exploded. And that's a good thing because this kid is huge. And when you see Mark Antunes in person, he's a big guy, but there's still room to build him up too. So there's a lot of talent there with him. He'll be probably an offensive tackle. You love that you got him early. Brady Beckenhuis, man. I believe he and Dean Ruxnitis are both wrestlers. And if there's one thing, if you're an everydayer here at Locked On BC, is that I love when you get wrestlers that can be offensive linemen. They just it's a skill set together that just works so well. And Beckenhuis, I know specifically, is one of the best wrestlers in the state of Massachusetts. So this kid's going to be a mauler when he gets here. He's got that mentality that you just love for an offensive lineman, that gritty dirt dog mentality that just, it perseverates, it seeps in through every good offensive lineman. And so Beckenhuis, he had good offers. Maryland, I think Syracuse offered him. Rutgers, I think, was involved at one point. BC landed him early, and I love that as part of this class is that a lot of the local kids that they wanted, they had locked up before, official visit season. So you get him, you get Ruxnitis, and I believe both of them will probably be interior, either centers or guards. So that's 3 right there. Now you can flip the coin here. Once you get past those 3, was everything rosy and peachy? No, because there was a big miss. Marky Walbridge and Kai Pritchard were both big misses for BC. And those were tough losses because Walbridge only a 3-star, was only a 3-star because he was a quiet kid, didn't do a lot of the camp stuff. But anyone who watched his film knew what he could do. He ended up at Michigan. It's hard for a school like Boston College at this point to beat out schools like Michigan because Michigan cranks out offensive linemen like it's nobody's business. They were a national champion 2 years ago. They've got a game experience that you're not going to beat, plus an educational system and the Big Ten revenue sharing. It's just tough. So that was a tough loss. You also lost Kai Pritchard to Illinois. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's Illinois. They're going to be a good team this year. They've got Luke Altmaier and Brett Bielema. It's got that team going in the right direction. But that was a loss too. Now, the other name that kept popping up was U-Haul. And I kept telling you guys, BC wasn't pushing for him. They looked at him at one point. They decided maybe there were other guys they were looking at. He ended up at UNC. That was not a recruiting loss because they weren't recruiting him. So it wasn't like that was a big deal. So those were the like small pieces that went to the wayside. And then you ended your class with a couple other names. You had Bruno Warner, who's 6'9", coming from Germany. And this is your third NFL Academy player on your roster, as long as he makes it here. You have Pape Sai, Andy Quinn, the punter. You brought in some, European and African players, and the hope is that you can develop them. Warner has the body and the size to be a big-time ACC offensive lineman. But like a lot of these kids, he's gonna take time. He is a developmental project, and he will take his time. So that is okay. And then Lawrence Ayukuli from I think of Staten Island, New York, is another developmental project, but he's also 6'9". So you get these two monster developmental projects. And here's how I view that. This is how I view all of this. And it's college, so I hate saying this because maybe they want their education and you don't want to say flame out, but you hit on one of those kids, either Lawrence or Bruno, you've done your job. As long as one of these humongous offensive linemen end up playing at Boston College and starting, that's good. So 5 offensive linemen. This goes back to, and this ends up being something that Bill O'Brien did that we really haven't seen BC do in quite a while, which is really bulk up on offensive linemen in a class. There were classes, you were getting 2, 3 kids, and that was happening. It happened last year, a year before. That makes it harder. That's why you had to go into the portal, because you didn't have a lot of guys. You were kind of thin. It only takes 1 or 2 guys to transfer out, and all of a sudden now you're scrounging in the portal again. Bringing in 5, that is a excellent haul. And you have your developmental project guys like the 2 I just said, and 3 that hopefully will be quicker to get up there. But 5 will hopefully help build up your trenches, and that is such a key at any level of football, on the offense and defensive side, to build up those trenches. And I think Bill O'Brien did an excellent job on the offensive side. Defensive side I thought was okay too, but I really like the way he did the offensive side. Now, in a moment, I'm going to tell you who I picked on the offense and defensive side of the ball to be my offensive and defensive MVR, most valuable recruit. I'll get into who those are in just a moment. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Told you a couple weeks ago, my family was deciding to go to the Woo Sox game. It was a Saturday. I could not find tickets on their sites, but I found it on Game Time, and I got enough tickets for another group of friends and their family to come as well. It was so easy. We got it all done. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop closer you get to first pitch, and they got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. The seat views are right in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you're going to be. You don't want to get seats and be in a terrible position, and Game Time takes that all out. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. And for my first listeners who make Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day, you've heard us talking recruiting, and it's all in our catalog. Go back. If you're on YouTube, go through our playlist. The last month and a half is all evergreen stuff that you can learn all about BC if you have not caught up on this. So I recommend this to you. If you're in your office and you're listening and it's like, oh, AJ's done in 25 minutes, go check out another episode too. Check them all out so you get all the episodes. Because I'm guessing some of you have missed a few, and you don't want to miss all the good news that we have here on Locked On Boston College. Now, the MVR for me, this is the most valuable recruit. And I'm going to spread this out to the offense and the defensive side of the ball. And I want to tell you who I think BC's most valuable recruit will be when all things are said and done. And there are two names that I think are a little different than maybe what you're expecting me to say. And so my MVR on the offensive side of the ball is not – I almost went with Femi Babalola, but I didn't. I'm going to go with Tex Vaughn, the tight end. This was a recruit that committed in, I believe it was either April or May, who had an offer list as long as anyone else on this recruit committed group. He, was visiting Virginia Tech. Virginia was looking at him. South Carolina had crystal balls in for him. This was a tight end that was very highly sought after. He was just named one of the top 22 players in South Carolina. I saw him post about that on his Twitter page. So clearly there's a lot of excitement about Tex Vaughn. When he first took a visit to BC, I'll be frank with you right here. If you know me, I don't like to lie when I'm talking about things. I saw his offer list and I saw that there were crystal balls in, and I said, well, BC's going in after a kid that probably is not going to end up here, and they're going to probably end up on to Plan B. And I was completely wrong. And I don't mind being wrong when I'm wrong. I looked at him, I said, he's a South Carolina kid. South Carolina's looking at him, they're never going to land him. And they did. They landed him before even official visit season, and he seems like a strong commitment. This is not a kid that is looking around. He's stuck with BC, and he's committed. So Tex Vaughn, to me, was a big one, because also I remember I was creating, as part of my work with Eagle Insider, I come up with recruiting boards on, who are they looking at quarterback, who are they looking at, and it's all based off conversations I've had, sources I talked to, whatever. My recruiting board for tight end was Tex Vaughn, and that was it. There was no one else that they were looking at. It was him. So it was kind of like a do or die situation with him, and they nailed it. All the props to Will Long, the offensive coordinator, who was his main recruiter in South Carolina. He knew what he wanted, and he got him. And I love what he now brings to the tight end room. Because now, again, this tight end room, and I love how they've been recruiting, continues to build. You have Ty Lockwood still here. You're going to be bringing in 3 tight ends that are on campus right now that haven't started practice in DJ Johnson, Bryce Lewis, the son of Tim Lewis, the defensive coordinator, and Stevie Amar. Now you also bring in Tex Vaughn, and you have talent. Again, iron sharpens iron. This is what you need at Boston College. You need good players that can hopefully hopefully can compete. And I think Tex Vaughn is a good one. Like, this is not a flyer. This is not a developmental kid. This is a kid that's going to be able to play. And hopefully he'll find his role within the Boston College offense, where, tight ends are always very critical when you're building, your passing attack. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, just like when I was about to pick Femi Babalola to be the MVR, I almost went with Dom Funk. And I honestly was coin flip between these two. My MVR, both of, Funk and this player, have been committed for a while. But the buzz I've heard about this one I picked gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more I hear about him. And this is from scouts at 247. People I've talked to who've watched him at camps, they're saying this is a kid that's legit. And it's Mac Fitzgerald. Mac Fitzgerald does not have any other offers that he's ever announced. He's Craig Fitzgerald, the strength and conditioning coach's son. So some folks may go, oh, it's just a coach's son. It's not going to be anything. This is not what I've heard. I've heard, first of all, he had a monster season for his high school last year. His first year at Catholic Memorial. I think he was at Bergen Catholic before that. So he's played at some good schools. Now, he is not going to be a nose tackle. He's going to be a 5 technique. So that's more like a George Rooks type of player that's off ball, off the center. But what I've heard is this kid is developing into quite the player. And so he's a player that I'm putting in right now as, not the biggest get, because obviously his dad's on the staff. The odds you're going to get him are pretty good. But what he could become, I think there's a lot of potential in Mac Fitzgerald. He's rated an 88 right now. He could become a 4-star at some point. I'm not sure how they would do that, but some of the scouts that are at 247 have been impressed, so he might be on that list. I really do think Mac Fitzgerald is that most valuable defensive player. You've got a lot of other players that I think are fine. Guys like Steve Klein, the linebacker, and, a few other defensive tackles that you brought in. Those guys will be fine. I look at the players they missed, though, and that's the piece that still stings. Because whether it is, some of the defensive tackles that didn't land, whether it was Alex Willis or the kid that ended up, Jermaine Polk at Rutgers, or obviously Carter Gooden, those ones were tough. The losses on the defensive side of the ball I thought were harder and more of a blow to where the recruiting class was going to go than on the offensive side of the ball. So that was my pick. I picked Mac Fitzgerald to be my MVR on the defense. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Hit me up in the comment section here at Locked On BC. I love hearing about you. What your thoughts are. You can hit me up on Twitter at AJBlack247 or in the comments on YouTube. I know some of you love to comment, and I see, the same guys out there all the time. And if you want to join them, they're a good time out there. Some of you guys don't agree with me. That's fine too. And in a moment, let's wrap things up. Let's talk about let's look ahead. I've focused so much with you on the class of 2026. I have 3 names, not quarterback related, that I want to throw out for the class of 2027 that you're going to want to watch for. We'll get into that in just a moment. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I've been looking to try to improve my portfolio for retirement. Monarch Money has it all laid out. All my investments are all in one spot, so I can see it. It's not hard. I don't need to remember a whole bunch of different passwords. It's all in one place, and that's what makes Monarch Money so easy to use. So check it out. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here of Eagle Insider. And for all of you who are, everydayers, who listen 5 days a week, I know many of you are so excited about the start of camp, which starts next week. And I'm very excited to get there to talk about it because I'll be at practice. I'm able to talk about it here on the show. Hopefully we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about what's going on, get the news and notes, and talk to the staff and players. And we'll be having all that here on Locked On BC, so make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Now, let's get into 2027. First piece of note for 2027, I think a lot of folks need to understand is that BC, I feel like this year 2026 was a big year for Massachusetts and local recruiting. You had even guys that you didn't get, whether it was Mark Walbridge or guys you didn't go after, like U-Haul. It was a big local group of Power 4 level players. I don't expect 2027 to be that way. There's a few. And one of them, BC has showed no interest in, and that's Peter Bork, who's going to be the number one recruit in the state, and he could be getting up. Looks like maybe like Penn State or something like that. It's going to be a smaller group locally. But the one name so I'm going to give you three names of players to watch for. One name that is very much focused on by BC is Springfield Central running back Isaiah Rogers. Isaiah Rogers has been someone on BC's radar for a while now. They watched him at a camp last year. They've had him on campus. He's got offers from a bunch of different schools, including Mississippi State, Syracuse, Rutgers, Pitt, I think, has offered him. He's bordering on getting big, but he's right around where BC can get him. And he's about a 4-star. He's a running back. He's the number 2 recruit in the state. This is going to be the name I think is going to be the most critical name in the state of Massachusetts for the class of 2027 for BC, since Peter Bork probably will not be. So I look at Isaiah Rogers and say, right now, they're not battling blue bloods. They're not trying to keep him away from Bill Belichick. He's right where they can get him. So this will be an important one to see if they can land. And just like we saw last year, I'm not sure if he would fall in the Dom Funk camp where they could get him before he blows up. But hopefully they're trying, because he's very, very talented. He'd be a great running back for this room and one you would want to watch for. That's Isaiah Rogers. Anyone who follows Massachusetts high school football knows who he is, because he's a very good player. The second player I want to tell you guys about is a tight end from New Jersey. His name's Sidney Padilla. Sidney Padilla is from West Orange, and he's not a huge recruit right now. I think it's BC, Rutgers, and Syracuse have offered him, but he's a name that's going to start getting bigger. He, during the camp season this spring, he started getting more and more attention. I would think that if more teams started to watch his film for his junior year, he's going to get more offers. So if BC is looking for a tight end for the class of 2027, and I'm assuming they are, with the way classes are working now, you're basically going for every position, at least one. So I feel like Sidney Padilla could be a good tight end that you're going for. So this is one I look at specifically because right now it's you and your regional rivals. You got Fran Brown and you've got Greg Schiano. Can Bill O'Brien win that matchup if that's who they put near the top of their class? And I don't know where they're at in terms of their board yet for that, but I think Sidney Padilla would be one. And now that Carter Gooden is kind of on the side, who is going to be the next Carter Gooden? And it's already been lined up. The next Carter Gooden that you're going to watch for next year in terms of elite New England recruit is Makai Brown out of Connecticut. He is unbelievably big. He's a 6'7" edge rusher who is ranked, I think, 115 already on 247. And he's already starting to get monster offer list, but BC was in on him early. Penn State is already pushing for him, so I'm not sure if BC will get to that point, but he's a 4-star. He's blue chip. This is where having a good season could really help BC. Did not help with Carter Gooden, and maybe it will help with Carter Gooden if BC can shock some people and then get him to maybe flip or something like that. But if it doesn't work for him, maybe it'll help for Makai Brown, where if you go out there and have a good 2025 season, then recruits see that. That could change some things. So that was the third name I watched for. On Eagle Insider, I have a couple others, and I'm going to continue to start building out, who BC's looking at, who are some names to watch for, and we'll have that all up on the site. But on tomorrow's show, ACC Media Day starts. We're going to hear from Jim Phillips. I'm going to give you my thoughts on what he has to say. We'll have a whole lot more to talk about, and maybe I'll give you some more thoughts on Mitch's all century quarter century team, which put up his defense up earlier today. I think you probably want to see that as well. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. You can check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and I'm on TikTok. Locked On Boston College on TikTok. Check that out. And I hope if this is your first time checking this out, you give us a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. And if it's on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe. It really does help our algorithm and getting us out to more and more people, because we're the only daily Boston College podcast. Obviously there's other podcasts out there like Eagles Daily, and Bill O'Brien has his podcast as well, which doesn't really talk about BC all that much. Just kidding. Some of his episodes did. Good one on Burt Breer, but it has nothing to do with BC. That's up today. But check that out as well. And thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.